Slavery was abolished in 1833, though excluding India. Then the French colony followed suit in 1838. Then you have the US that abolished in 1865. Something that has been abolished in the last centuries is being practiced here in Nigeria. We engage into such modern slavery. It's a bad omen. So when we look at these issues, you will see that it's a loss, economic-wise and on the victim side.
We have the internal trafficking and we have the external trafficking. The internal trafficking is trafficking within Nigeria as a whole, interstates, local governments, cities and all. And we have the external trafficking of moving victims from within Nigeria outside international borders. It has been a major problem for the nation and I think for the world at large, and which is the reason why international organizations, foreign agencies are all out and the Nigerian government all out to fight this menace. Because if we don't fight it, it will kill us one day, and we don't pray to get to that level where human trafficking will consume the whole nation.
When you are in Sahara Desert, you cannot really differentiate at the exact time. You cannot really say, oh, but we'll just be there, thinking we are in the morning. Before you know, everywhere got dark. Before you know, morning and all of that. So the day we now finally left there, going to Libya, we get to a spot. There was a guy, not in my own vehicle because we left with 5 vehicles that very night. A guy called Harrison. We were all together. I believe the guy is from Benin. He gets to a spot that he was already tired of the journey, actually. We were trying that because of lack of water. The guy gave up. That moment, every other person was already tired. It was only me, my cousin brother, and one other guy that made the sacrifice, buried him. And the Arab men told us, we don't need to cry because we are not allowed to cry.
We have a lot of factors affecting or prevailing in human trafficking and forced migration. First is the push factor. Factors that make them leave their state of origin. First is unemployment. People are not employed in this country. Majority of our youths are not employed. So they tend to migrate to look for greener pastures. That's one factor. Another factor is this idea of ignorance that if I go out of this country, I'll meet money or gold, I'll meet currency on the streets of Europe. Many youngsters have that notion that it would be better for me to leave. So that's when the idea of ignorance comes in. They are not aware of what they are going to meet. Even if they are going, they don't even know the country where they are going to. They don't know what it takes to travel. These are ignorance on their part. And again, they don't even know that they are going to be exploited. Then you have the idea of poverty, when people cannot make ends meet. We have a family of 10. The father is a farmer, the wife is a trader. Children are there. They can barely eat. So those kind of people, when the trafficker comes and look at those vulnerable families, they can quickly give out their children for them to be trafficked. Then you have a family pressure. When family members, they look at their mates or they look at their peers and say they can't start comparing their words with other youngsters that have made it, in quotes, they don't even know how they have got it and all that. They can be making instances of fine buildings in Benin. So you see your mate, they were the one that erected this building. So I can't be here while you are still with me eating. So you need to fend for yourself. So you have family pressure. Some even go as far as selling their farmlands, inherited buildings for their wards to travel on this journey or to be trafficked. Then again, you have peer group influence. This is a major factor because nowadays you have youngsters, they want to make it quick. I don't care how Mr. A have gotten wealthy, I want to make it the right way. You know, these are some of the push factors that make people leave the country. Then again, you have the pull. What is attracting them in that destination country that they are traveling to? You have perceived opportunity elsewhere. They all perceive that it will be better if I leave this country. Then again, you have political and social stability, good health care system, good welfare system, you know, employment and all that. So these are some of the pull factors that are pulling our youths out of this country.
The year 2003 was a watershed in the fight against the menace of human trafficking in Nigeria, as the government adopted the Trafficking in Persons Prohibition, Law Enforcement and Administration Act. Prior to this, the provisions in the Penal and Criminal Code for both the north and southern part of Nigeria respectively were found to be less effective in combating the menace of human trafficking in the country. The Act, as enacted in 2003 by the National Assembly, has undergone 2 amendments, with the recent being in 2015. The amended Act of 2015 take to account some of the lapses in 2003 and 2005 Acts. It also captures some of the recent discoveries, which includes organ harvesting and ritual killings. Furthermore, the Act also removed the option of fine for convicted persons and created the Victim Trust Fund and Victim Shelter Center for the rehabilitation, restitution, and reintegration of victims of trafficking into the society, and afforded victims immunity from prosecution for any offense committed as a result of being trafficked. Aside from the Trafficking in Persons, Prohibition, Law Enforcement and Administrator Act of 2015, other laws that exist are:
we also have in place the Violence Against Persons Act 2015. We also work with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended. We also have the Child Rights Act, because sometimes when cases come up, you need to go back to these laws. We also have, we also play around with the UN Convention on the Rights of a Child, 1989, and I think amongst others, we also have the African Charter on the Rights and the Welfare of a Child, which is in 1990.
We have the international laws, the regional laws, and the national and state laws. Do you know about the Palermo Protocol? The Palermo Protocol has to do with 3 issues. One is proliferation of light and small weapons. 2 has to do with human trafficking, prohibiting human trafficking. While the 3rd one has to do smuggling of persons. In 2003, the Palermo Protocol, we now became a signatory to this Palermo Protocol, which gave room that the Immigration Act adopted that in their Immigration Act 2015 amendment, which looked into smuggling of persons. Then we can talk about the regional laws that has to do with the ECOWAS. You remember the agreement in West Africa countries that there is free movement of persons and their other economic activities, you understand, to ease. We know that such policy gives room for West Africans to move freely across West African region.
Then the other act is the Nigerian Constitution. The Nigerian Constitution gives rights for your fundamental human right. You know, human trafficking is an infringement of human rights. So the Nigerian Constitution have provision for protection of your human rights. Then you look at the criminal code. which is practiced in the South. Human trafficking is a criminal offense. So the criminal code is part of the laws that will enable us to prosecute and penalize these traffickers. When you go to the penal law in the North, they have such powers too. Like if you go to the part of the North, what is more there is more of child labor and abuse, like all this amagery and stuff like that, begging and other things. So the penal code too, you can use the penal code based on the Nigerian Constitution, the powers of the Nigerian Constitution, to prosecute the offenders. Then you have the Nigerian Immigration Act, which says that if you want to travel, you must travel right. You must not go through the irregular means.
But basically and majorly, we use the Trafficking in Persons Prohibition, Enforcement and Administration Act, which has in it the penal sections for human traffickers, and basically that's what we use in courts.
The National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, which was a creation of the 2003 Act, is saddled with the responsibility of coordinating the Nigerian government's response to human trafficking, including administering the Act and adopting measures of the prevention of human trafficking and protection of victims.
The National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons is a law enforcement agency of the federal government. It has the power to arrest offenders of human trafficking. It has power to prosecute them. It also has power to rescue the victims of human trafficking. And in the process of rescuing them, we rehabilitate them, we empower them, so that at the end of the day, they become a better person in society. A lot of them are sent to school by NAPTIP. A lot of them are made to go through vocational trainings. And at the end of the day, when they have completed those vocations, they are given the required tools to do their job. And the essence of doing this is that we always want to ensure that our victims are assisted, they are protected, and they become a better person when they are reunited into the society.
According to Martin Luther King Jr., law and order exist for the purpose of establishing justice. And when they fail in this purpose, they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social progress. There are laws, conventions, both regional and international, but are they effective in combating human trafficking?
Amongst the many challenges, I'll just be mentioning a few, of which one is they do not want to go back to their traumatic stage because they are not willing to recount the stories and ordeal they went through. Two, most of their traffickers are known persons in their communities. Some are their relations, some are very close relatives, some are even aunties, uncles. And you know, with our society, when they hear that, oh, that person is going to court, that person will be prosecuted, he or she needs to face the law, no one wants to indict whoever is going to court. I don't want to be the one to send A, B, and C to prison. So they withdraw. Then we have cases of victims who took oaths before they were trafficked. They believe so much in this oath they have taken. We call it locally juju, and you can also call that voodoo. And they believe so much in it. If you're not able to get their juju priests to break that oath they had taken earlier, they won't come to court to testify. Some of them are now married. They do not want their spouses to know the life they lived in the past. And they do not want to have anything to do with the courts, or they just want it to go that way. And of course, we have issues of funding, trying to transport these victims back, to come back to court to testify. We also have issues law enforcement officers face when trying to rescue these victims. Say you walk into a brothel, and there are victims of human trafficking in that brothel. But because they are above 18, you perceive they are just there for prostitution. But they are actually being exploited. And a law enforcement officer might not know that even this adult is being exploited in that brothel. And he just walks away because, of course, prostitution is not an offense. It is the exploitation of prostitution that is now an offense. Willingly, I want to prostitute. I will take my proceeds myself. But I bring another girl and ask that girl to prostitute, and I take that proceeds. I am exploiting her sexually. She does not have the right to dictate the number of men she wants to have sex with. She does not have the right to dictate the people, the type of person, because she is under an oath or under an obligation to deliver. The madam is after the money. And sometimes law enforcement officers are not able to tell what human trafficking constitutes. Because human trafficking is dicey. It's dicey.
You find out that some petitioners or some complainants, at the middle of the case, they will come and tell you that, oh, we are no longer interested in the case. We have settled with the trafficker or the suspects, making us to have cold feelings. At times we go, we argue, we talk. The judge will tell us, you cannot cry more than the bereaved. So you find out that it will now deter the zeal in us. Again, what we also witness or experience in the field, you may go for reunion. The communities there will tell you, oh, we don't want her back, or we don't want him back. It should still go ahead, that they spent money in training him or her, At times they will say, there's one who went for reunion. They said the child is a witch, that they don't want to take her, So we had to reunite her through the family head there, their paramount ruler. So these are the obstacles we find in the job.
Law enforcement officers are never off duty. They are dedicated public servants who are sworn to protect public safety at any time and place that the peace is threatened. They need all the help that they can get. Barbara Boxer, U.S. Senator.
We begin on the journey at about 10 p.m. at night. We drove all the way from Kano, though I don't really know the names of the community or state that we went through that very night. Well, I noticed that we arrived at Niger border at about 4 a.m. in the morning. Immediately, our driver stopped. He said, you guys should come down and start moving. Immediately, the driver turned his vehicle and started moving back. Before we get to know it, we get busted by Nigerian immigration. So at that particular moment, very many of us ran, and I noticed that there was no need of me running. So I have to wait. There I was held by them. They were now searching for others. They were now bringing in one. We are now about 30-something. They now took us somewhere at that particular moment, asking us questions. We were responding that we are leaving Nigeria. They're now asking, oh, what are the reasons of you guys leaving Nigeria? We tried explaining to them. They get to a point. They delayed us till 4:30 p.m. in the evening that same day. Alajina called and I spoke to the immigration men. After then, I don't know the arrangement they made. The immigration men asked us to pay 4,000 naira. We now bargained with them. They collected 3,500 from each and every one of us, but some others paid 5,000. So after then, they were now the one that called bike that we used in beating the border that very evening.
If the society must succeed against the traffickers, the law enforcement agents must be seen to do what is right at all times, as their failure puts everyone's effort in jeopardy.
The borders are too porous. If you get to the northern part of it, you discover that the border is porous to a point that million persons can walk in, million persons can walk out without questions. And that is the going out point for every one of them going through the Mediterranean Sea. They walk through there easily because these persons have collected their own part of it. Because definitely you're going to pay them. So they are collecting their money, not thinking about what happens next to the person. So they have a role to play. If you talk about the police also have a role to play. You can arrest a trafficker today or report a trafficker to them and say this person is a trafficker. As far as that person can buy his or her way through, always grant him bail without even prosecuting the person in the court of law.
The law enforcement agencies have always been playing a very big role in this fight against human trafficking. I don't think we can do a lot more without them. And in as much as we have the good ones in the law enforcement agencies, there is equally the bad eggs amongst them, that when a trafficker is identified and arrested, it surprises me to hear that some of them are back on the street with impunity. So I would say that their role in this aspect have not been favorable in achieving a great result in the fight against human trafficking.
It is believed that the 2015 Act also requires an amendment, as some of the provisions can be exploited to the advantage of the traffickers. This already suggests that there are mountains to climb if we must nip in the bud the crime of human trafficking.
In my opinion, the laws can be improved upon, mainly because the traffickers are a step ahead of the law. For example, the section that talks on the sales of persons. Before now, no one thought, no one imagined that a human being can be sold. A human being can be bought. No one ever imagined that. But it is happening. Human beings are bought. Human beings are sold. Even though, yes, that section is embedded in the 2015 Trafficking in Persons Prohibition, Enforcement and Administration Act, but there are steps that human traffickers have gone ahead with that needs to be in the law, so the government can curb this menace of trafficking. For the section I cited, which is sales of persons for exploitation, the law went ahead to explain what exploitation means. And the definition for exploitation doesn't cover all the loopholes. There are loopholes in that definition of exploitation, which human traffickers are now exploiting and leveraging on. Now we have the definition for exploitation, amongst others, is exploitation of the prostitution of others. For example, babies are being sold. That baby cannot be used for prostitution. That baby cannot speak that I was being used for prostitution, I was being deprived from my mother, or I was being used for labor exploitation. And because that baby cannot speak, persons who buy and sell children might escape the law, because the reason for buying, the reason for selling a child, you don't have a definition for that reason. So if the law is being improved upon, I think it will go a long way to curb the sales of babies that is now trending in our society.
Human trafficking kills the victims. Her dreams, aspirations, and self-worth. Allowing the evil to continue means no good for the society. As Edmund Burke said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
I am looking forward to having seen robust and improved judiciary system in Nigeria, where the process of getting justice can be easier, so that these traffickers can be prosecuted. They can be arrested and prosecuted within a very short period so that they will serve as a deterrent. Because when persons are not persecuted, you know, it seems as if you operate with impunity. Nobody will ask you. After all, before we get justice, it will take like 4 years, which is not good. I just want to see a system whereby justice will be fast so that the victims can have something, can be happy that they get justice. With that, we will make a very good headway in combating human trafficking.